Hello everybody. This video is to show you how your console shows up to your doorstep. Imagine there's a box around this and we're going to unpack it and show you how to put on the armrest, the fire extinguisher mount, the cup holder mount, and kind of where everything is in the packaging. So in this case, I'm using the large cup holder. If you order a normal size cup holder, it'll be obvious. It'll be kind of folded over the top of the console, wrapped in plastic and foam. But for this case, we have the large cup holder here. We would open up the lid. Inside, the lid will be attached. Inside, you'll have the armrest. It'll be wrapped in plastic but sitting inside the console. You will have a little bag of hardware. We'll come back to what's in this. Inside the bottom, in the O2 area, will be your fire extinguisher holder. This will be wrapped in plastic and zip tied in there, but it is in there. And then on the bottom, you will have already attached the gripping material. You will, once you figure out where you want this in the plane, before the first time, because the first time you're going to kind of slide it forward and aft to figure out exactly where you want it. You will remove the yellow film off of this and then set it in place. It's not a permanent, but it is grippy, and it's easier to do this, to maneuver with the plastic on versus taking the plastic off. So that would be all the parts that are inside the box. Next, we'll take you through how to put everything on, including the armrest. All right, so we're going to take you through how to put on the front cup holder. And you can see the front of the console. You have two mounting positions for this. We'll be using this triangular 3-hole pattern. And you really have a high position and a low position, and it's really what you want in your aircraft. So we're going to come back to this bag of hardware here. We're going to get into it. We're going to take the sticker out of the way. That's good for at least 15 horsepower. And you'll be wanting the bolts that are in here, and there's going to be two different size bolts, possibly if you have a large cup holder mount option. If you don't, if you have the regular cup holder, they'll all be the same, so you can't get confused. But the larger screws or larger bolts do go for the cup holder here in this case. So the couple pieces of tools that we'll need, you need an 1/8 inch Allen wrench. Here I have it on a socket or a ratchet, and then 3/8 are the nut sizes, so a 3/8 wrench or a 3/8 socket here, either one. So the first is you're just going to basically figure out which position you want. This is high, low is about right here, and in this case we're going to put it in the high position and get it mounted up here. So as you're threading the bolts through the holes, with the powder coating on there, they'll be a little tight. They actually, you probably can thread it through, but don't rely on that. It's very, very thin. So we'll get this first one started here. All right, now we have the cup holder bolted up here to the front, have bolted in the high position. When you're putting the bolts in and attaching it, you can really put them in either way, and you'll show here, I did the top one way and the bottom two the other way. It's really whatever you want to do. I will say, imagine your hand going down in here. You might be hitting that. It's a little bit smoother for your hand with the bolts going that way. And then also, you don't really see the nuts because they're hidden by the cup holders. So, but either way, whatever you want to do, it's a little easier to put them one way than the other, especially if you have large hands. It's a little tight in there. So next, we're going to put on the lid. Now the lid, to show you, obviously has some adjustability to it. These slats are in here to allow you to fine tune where you want the armrest to go. So you can imagine you can slide it all the way this way, all the way back. The farther back you go, it will sit up a little higher because it's sitting on the back of the hinge, but it will still open. So it's pretty simple to do. You want to take a Sharpie or a pen, line up your armrest so you have, you know, where you want. Again, it is adjustable, but I'm going to put it basically in the middle. Also, the farther back, you do have the ram and amps bolt pattern. So you could take a ram mount here, and you can imagine when you bolt it up, all right, you can bring the armrest far enough to the edge of it and still be fine. Or if you're not using that, you can move it all the way forward. You can move it past it so it overhangs it a little bit like this. But for the sake of this, I'm gonna put it right in the middle. You have it basically squared up, hold pressure down, lift up the lid, and then just mark 4 holes. You don't really have to make them too even, but the even the better. And then once you got that, you can pre-drill. You don't have to do pre-drill. Pre-drilling is obviously preferred, and you just take an 1/8 inch drill bit, turn it over. So now we have it pre-drilled, and you're going to use the 4 screws, these button head screws. They're the only screws in the package, but there's 4 of them. Make sure you put some washers on them. And now we're going to attach it to the lid. All right, so you just pre-drilled your lid, you have your screws, you're ready to attach it. You need a Phillips head screwdriver. We'll set the armrest on the lid, open it up, find one of your first pre-drilled holes here. So you just thread it in and get it started. So we got the lid lightly attached. Don't crank these down yet until you got all 4 of them in. And you shouldn't be using anything more if you're pre-drilling than a hand screwdriver. Don't use a driver for any of this, especially if you're heavy on the trigger. Don't use an impact gun. Obviously, you don't want to over torque these and strip out the wood. But if you do, you can just move down, you know, a 1/2 inch on the wood and start all over again. So So we have the lid now lightly attached, or the armrest attached to the lid lightly. We have it basically where we want it. If you want to move it afterwards 4 1/2, all you have to do is loosen these up and then slide the armrest as needed. So I like where it's at. I'm going to tighten these down a little bit. Again, you tighten these. This is not a strength competition. And there we go. Now we have the armrest on the lid. Next, we're gonna spin this guy around. And we're gonna put on the FE mount. or rear cup holder, whichever one you're doing. So the rear FE mount has one position, and so you just match it up. And for this one, you can do either way. You can do the bolts coming out to the back or the bolts going in. So this one, obviously, you're not really reaching down and back when you're in the flying position, so you don't have as much clearance, or you don't have the clearance to maybe hit your knuckle on the end of a bolt like you do in the front that we went over. So for this one, I'm just going to take my 1/8 inch Allen, start putting my screws in. Again, with the powder coat in there, it actually has a little bit of material, enough to make thread, so you actually do thread it through a little bit. Again, don't rely on that for any type of holding power. Make sure you put on the bolts. I'm gonna line up that first hole. There we go. We're gonna do another one. And finally the third. Now, again, I'm reiterate, this is not threading into the body of the console. This has very little holding power. This is threaded into the powder coat material. That's oversizing the hole. So make sure you put on the washers and then the nuts, and then tighten them down as needed. So that's it. To put the washers and nuts on, flip open the lid. You just come in here and put the hardware on. I like to use a stubby ratchet because it is a tight area to work in. So we come in here, we're torquing it down a little bit. Again, this is not a strength competition. This is stainless steel hardware. So it will strip. And there we go. You just assembled your console. You're ready to go put it in the airplane.